A very good morning to Chancellor Ma'am, Pro-Chancellor Sir, Directors, Vice-Chancellor Sir, Pro-Vice-Chancellor Sir, all my dear colleagues and attendees. It gives me an immense pleasure to call you, all of you, to a very exciting webinar. For this webinar, if I have to give you a starter, just imagine a mother or a sister or any lady for that matter, when she tries to send her small child to the school. What will she do? She will look at the bus time which is there. Say the bus comes at 7 o'clock. Then she does some backward calculation, and she thinks, okay, 6 o'clock I should wake up my child. 6:05 I should give him the milk, and then 6:15 is this I will do. Then I will pack his lunch. I will get the child ready for the bus, and exactly 2 minutes before 7 I have to be on the bus stand. What do you think this is? This takes a lot of planning for a mother, for any lady to send the child, by only a child, even a husband to send to the office. The same kind of planning goes. This is project management for you, in short. What I want to emphasize here is project management is not just concerned with any project that you're working on. Project management is everywhere in our life. This you're talking about an adult lady. Let us talk about a small child who's just started going to the school, say a 5 years old child. When he comes back from the school, he analyzes, okay, the homework that I have got today will take me an hour and a half to finish. Then I have to rest. Then I have to go out and play with my friends. I have to prepare for tomorrow's test. And then I have my TV programs to see. Then he decides, okay, this to this time, I will do my homework, and then I can rush for playing, come back, quickly finish my revision for tomorrow, and then I can watch my TV so that mommy and daddy will not say anything. That is project management for you. A small child is also doing those kind of management things, and the management skills are being developed from that age itself. We do not realize it though. So I will not keep you holding here for many things. It gives me an immense pleasure to call the two eminent personalities from very diverse industries. The first panelist is Padma Bhushan Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai. He is an Indian scientist who graduated in electrical engineering from Madras University. He underwent management program at Harvard Business School and obtained a PhD from Pune University and DSc from Tumkur University. Dr. Pillai today does not need any introduction. What I am telling is, out of place for him, because you just write his name or you write BrahMos in the Google, and there he comes. He is known as the father of BrahMos missile, and he also heads the Association of Project Management. The other eminent speaker from an entirely different industrial background and entirely different geography is Mr. Naveen Garg, who's at present in India, but otherwise he resides in Seattle, Washington. And he's joining us today as a second panel member. Naveen has decades of experience across software, non-profit education, sports and community service, and real estate industries. He's working and investing in US, Europe, UK, France, Denmark, and India. Having built enterprise and cloud-based world-class products from the ground up at Texas Instruments, OpenText, Gupta, and Microsoft, Naveen has co-founded a software startup offering team collaboration suite as a service built upon its own patented AI and ML-based object storage and information extraction platform. Naveen brings to the table a unique perspective of developing global products focused on customer productivity with robust software engineering practices across the world. To moderate the panel today, I have Ms. Shabana KM, who serves as an assistant professor and program coordinator for MBA at the Center for Open and Digital Education by Hindustan Online. She has a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. She is specialized in human resource management and is skilled in training and development, organizational behavior and performance management, and did her research about the impact of glass ceiling effect and submitted her PhD thesis recently. Over to you, Shabana, now.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Glad to be a moderator for the day. So I feel today is a day we need to celebrate project management because we have big two prodigies amongst us. Speaking of agility in management, what is agility? Why do we speak about agility as a part of management? Is because agility talks about the adaptability of an organization for any quick changes, because we have an environment that is very, very turbulent these days. So our management should be efficient in handling these changes and adapt itself to the market shifts. Under agility in management, today we are covering about project management. To put it in simple terms, and Amy ma'am explained it very clearly, I guess. So it is just the way of life. Anything and everything under the sky falls under project management. So speaking of above the sky, we have with us today Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai sir, the father of BrahMos, the man behind the supersonic precision missile, which the world is still in awe of, an absolute pioneer in project management. And also we have with us Mr. Naveen Garg, the man behind the project management of Microsoft Office, which we all still can't live without. And right now he is the co-founder of NLP Core, designing and developing a product in order to make our lives even more simpler. So if you observe, we have these two amazing gentlemen amongst us from diagonally opposite fields, but going to be speaking about the same topic, project management, thus proving a point that how diverse project management is. John F. Kennedy once said, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past and present are certain to miss the future. I feel this is highly applicable to project management because it has gone through a big evolution, starting from the days where people used to use sticky notes to now enterprise software solutions, especially the year 2020, where we had to witness incredible volatility. And this has led to massive trends and developments in 2022 with respect to project management areas, because the organization has to keep up with the changes in order to effectively manage the projects. On this note, let us start this first session with Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai sir, followed by Naveen Garg, and then we'll have an open discussion forum wherein the participants can post their questions in the chat box, and this shall be taken up for discussion. I now request Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai to kindly proceed.
Good morning to all of you. Let me share my slides. So I am going to talk about Agile in leadership. When you say project management, finally it all covered under the leadership. So I want to focus more on the leadership to lead to the new situation, changing situation. If you look at India, India was a great nation 2000 years before in terms of science, mathematics, medicine, culture, and knowledge. But over the period of 1000 years, because of the successive invasions and the industrial non-participation in the industrial revolution, the prosperity came down and our population increased to make us very poor. Now, after the independence, we had a thrust in the economic revival in 1991, and there was a thrust in the industrial growth, and information age helped us to push our economy better. And now the COVID situation, though dropped us in the economy, now we have picked up again, and we are moving towards our ambitious dream of developed status. Now, today the situation is knowledge age. And the knowledge age, the success comes from the human resource. We have 750 million youth with skill sets. They can definitely make a big change. So the changing situation demands more on the project management, the culture. The culture has to change. That's what we are going to talk about that. And when you look at the past 60, 70 years of our progress, we have adopted project management in a big way and gave a good leadership in major programs, starting from the Green Revolution, leading to 300 million tons of food grains, and the White Revolution, leading to the largest producer of milk in the whole world. And then communication, we have done wonderful work in the communication, supercomputers, and power production, and looking at the large scale precision farming and quantum computing, all coming. IT is giving a big help to us to $260 billion. Pharma, we are doing very well. And then the defense, we have now gone up. Earlier, we were mainly depending on the import. Now we are moving towards our indigenous systems more. And space program, we have done very well. And all these programs, if you see, there is a definitely a amount of trust for project management, because I was involved in most of the program, and I know how much we have influenced the project management to see that we achieve all these things. So now we are moving towards hypersonic program and planetary missions, which all outlined, and very clear understanding and systematic progress is being made to reach that goal. So all these things started with Vikram Sarabhai, who was the first to promote system engineering and project management in India for a large scale program like SLV3, and then for the introducing communication and television to the poor people. So all these things we have done because he wanted India to be the #1 country to use advanced technologies in solving problems of human common man. So he laid out the program of the SLV3 by Abdul Kalam, and then we have got a very good today. We have space program. We are one of the leaders in the whole world because of the vision of Dr. Sarabhai and the project management methods which he has introduced and subsequently followed by Professor Satish Dhawan. He is an institution builder with mission-driven programs, systems approach, strong leadership. He is the man who has introduced agility in management. So I can say that the top man for agility in management is Satish Dhawan, who was also having nobility in organization development and brought a new culture. This is the culture which we are talking about now. And because of that, we are seeing a globally competitive space power today, India, and with the cost-effective launches, we are self-reliant. We're looking at the planetary missions, and we have got many programs, human space program, and our own space station going to be there. All these things are going to happen because of the solid foundation put by these two gentlemen, and also successfully managed by Dr. Abdul Kalam in the SLV3 program. So similarly, Dr. Kalam also helped us in the programs for missiles development. Though we are 30-40 years behind the developed countries with the constraints of the missile technology control regime, he imparted a new concept of contemporary performance in the time of our deployment. So new futuristic technologies, newer concepts in that, and also the program management leadership. So this is networking with multiple institutions, working together. Here agility comes in a big way when you talk about different people with different culture, bringing them together and doing a project program, and with 5 missiles development simultaneously taken up, and we have imported a new culture into that. I was the program director for this program, so I could say that with all the constraints of the technology flow from other countries, and they did not want to succeed in missile program, we made a success. We developed all the technologies which were denied to us, and made the big powers to look at us that we can also do it. So, for example, the culture, how we differentiate from other people is, this is a ballistic missile called a Prithvi, where all ballistic missiles travel in a ballistic trajectory. From the starting point to the end point, it's a parabolic trajectory. All missiles go like that. That is the physics. When you throw a stone, it goes up and then comes back the same type of trajectory. That is called parabolic trajectory. But we do it in a maneuverable trajectory, in airplane and as well as pitch plane. So when you start from the beginning, nobody knows where it is going. So the target point is not known to the enemy, though he is tracing by the satellite or radar. He will not understand anything because it will be going on changing its trajectory, and finally it lands on the target which we wanted, he will not know. So this is the type of thing was introduced first time in the missile arena, by India. So see, thinking different is a very important thing. If you want to really, when you talk about agility, you should think differently. That's what we have done it. Just an example to you, there are 200 examples like that where I can tell you how we have introduced change in the thinking. This is the Agni program. 5 missiles are there for different, of a single stage to 2 stage to 3 stage. We have got for a long range up to 5,000 kilometers. 5,000 kilometers it goes, and so all these technologies which were denied. So we combated missile technology control regime very successfully and proved to the world that technology denied is technology gained. So then we landed into a new program. So instead of going the 6th country or 5th country in the world, we wanted to become the first country in the world. That's why we started a program called BrahMos. Is called Brahmaputra and Moscow are the name of 2 rivers joined together, a joint venture with Russia, a joint design, development, manufacture, and marketing. Mine to market was the concept. This is a missile, what you are saying. So this missile is the supersonic cruise missile, first in the world. And no one still, even today, is having a system like this within multiple platforms. So we have put our process stock of guidance, software, and the fire control systems platforms. And then we took the help of Russians for the Ramjet propulsion, which gives the speed, propulsion of speed. And we have formed a joint venture with 50.5% from DRDO and 49.5% from the Russia. The 2 governments put this funding, but because it is 50.5, it became a private company. So I was the CEO and the MD of the private company, which was managing the government fund, and I was holding both positions in the government as well as the CEO. So we made this program very successfully. You can see that it is multiple platforms, land, ship, underground, underwater, air, all platforms, and with different altitudes, different targets. Any type of target you can hit, any type of trajectory you can take, any place you can do the launch. It's the first of its kind in the world. So here also we have used all the project running techniques. By just seeing a flight of a missile launched from ship to another ship, you can see within 4 minutes a complete destruction is possible. Because of the sheer speed, you see you can destroy even big ships. This is an air platform that is launched from the Sukhoi. So it is an Andaman launched Andaman to a Nicobar Island, and it has to hit the target at 2 red points. The red points are the camera stations. It has to hit here, so you can see the accuracy. So precision, speed, and power, we are the leaders in the world. So the comparison is American Tomahawk versus the Indian BrahMos. We are 3 times faster, 1/3 we can reach the target. Half MB squared is the energy, so we are 9 times. And we have got every 3 seconds, the missile can go in land and sea target. So undefeatable due to speed, stealth, and electronic countermeasures. We are number 1 in the world as far as the supersonic cruise missile is concerned. So we have not only done that, we have made it as a company from $300 million investment jointly, and we have completed $7 billion order, and we are looking at 10 billion. And we are the one, Indian Army is the only land force in the world to have supersonic precision strike cruise missile. So this is the situation which is giving problem to our other neighbors and others. So what is the concept is, can we leapfrog? Mind to market, brand, where can we establish? This is a concept. And innovation is speed, precision, and power dictated by the future war. Creativity is novel JV concept, 1 step higher than what others can think of. Then leadership, thinking ahead, managing complexities. Best project management practices where it used competency build-up and networking with multiple industries from day 1 and making them as partners. and finally leading to a technology partnership and world-class product. It has BrahMos we started, but it has become really a BrahMostra today, liked by Indian Armed Forces and other. All the three services have got BrahMos today. So the program management of this missile is we talk about the management structure, partnership, new technology development, strategy, measurement, control, risk mitigation, schedule management, program analysis, control, evaluation, a new technique, then integrated progress and cost management, review and monitoring system, quality management, all these things are combined and when we talk about the project management. So we have a computerized schedule monitoring system with all the activities put together based on the work breakdown structure, and then we go through all these are known to you. And also we have introduced a new concept called PACE, which analyzes the critical activity in multiple project environment. We have got 5 projects and then multiple technologies, a matrix management structure. So we need to go through a proper analysis of the critical activity. So we make a master part, milestone part, PACE milestone part goes to PACE action. The critical activity is reviewed daily, and for each project it is daily reviewed, and then implication is analyzed, the sources are allocated, and then finally you don't allow them to go beyond the schedule. This is a control is exercised. So, and also the end value is the general method being followed in the world, but we followed a different method for analyzing the cost, progress, and time, integrated way. So this is the planned cost versus time. This is the planned time progress versus time. This is the time. And then both in the 4th quadrant, you will see cost versus progress. So this is the real analysis, which is normally not known to anyone, because the hidden thing is you spend money thinking that you are spending money, overspending money, but you would not have spent money in the real sense. So the activity value has to be analyzed. That's why we introduced this method. So we have got a project management association in India. I am the president of that. And we are an exclusive member of the International Project Management Association. And we are in 72 nations. We are there. And all 72 nations follow the same method of certification process. And 4-level certification. And the over 100 industries and 7,500 professionals in India, they are the members of they are certified people and members of this one. So we look at the 29 competence elements. When we say the agile project leadership, you need each one to have the perspective, people, and practice. Many elements have to be covered, from strategic governance and the culture, then people, self-reflection, personal integrity, how do they leadership, conflict management, teamwork, then practice what type of technology, technique they use for managing the project. So the overall in the different methods have been analyzed by a group of people from Australia, a Global Alliance for Project Performance is one. They have certified that our system or what we do as a PMA, IPMA, that's what certification we are following. The content-wise, we are 98%. And what the Americans follow, the PMI, is 70%. And the assessment point of view, we are 9 compared to the PMI is 4. So we are in the top of the world in terms of the leadership for project management system, what we have, including the syllabus and the certification process. And Agile, which has been recently introduced into that, this is again the same people collaboration and shared values is based on that model, and the term used to describe the mindset of the values and principles set forth in the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile mindset has got values, principles, and practices, and these are the values, individuals, and interactions or process, working products, then customer collaboration, responding to change, This is very important, responding to change. This is the one thing which is very important in the Agile. While there is value in items of the right, we value the items on the left more. So these 12 Agile principles are there. Focus is on the customer, the collaborative teams, and working software. So traditional, when we talk about traditional project management, it talks about the final delivery counts. So it goes like this. Whereas in Agile, delivery in different terms. So you will see that the risk is very small when you talk about Agile. So the major point in the Agile leadership is reduce the risk. This is a traditional waterfall method for project design, integration, testing, deployment, everything. But in the Agile leadership, it's like this. To subdivide into small milestones and realize those milestones, break them into parts. So when you say traditional project, 100% of the system we analyze and we say 30% done. And we say there's a delay like that. But in Agile leadership, we don't say that. We take only the 30% of the system, the first milestone, and we say 100% done. So this is the difference in the Agile. So the burn-up chart is also made. So the activity which is progressing is plotted, and you see that the remaining effort, this is a line, remaining effort, it goes on reducing. So you monitor remaining effort, you monitor more on that, and this one. So Agile thinking means what? Analytical. You divide complex problems into multiple solvable problems. Then logical, informal and formal reasoning. Then value, minimize waste and maximize value. Then inventive thinking, ideality, functions, resources. Then systems thinking, holistic approach, exploring the complexity. This is called the integrated thinking, called Agile thinking. And normally, when we talk about any project or programs, we talk about technology upgradation. So if you look at the technology upgradation, there is an evolution of intelligence going on. Intelligence is increasing. Initially, we talk about dumb systems. Then we talk about guided systems, including then smart systems. So space, time, energy, matter, they come into picture in the smart systems. Then we went to brilliant systems, where we introduced the information into that. Then genius systems came. So like the BrahMos, which is a genius system. Now we are now looking at transhuman systems, whether the human element, the mind part, can be introduced into the system. This is what is the next level of thinking, and then achieve the global intelligence. So space, time, energy, matter, information, and introduce the mind. So just to explain more, dumb system, this is in defense terminology, the dumb system is a bomb, and guided system is it has got it's introduced with the software so that it guided to the point. Smart system is it is intelligent enough to understand the enemy's position and then delivers. Brilliant system is multiple systems work together to destroy more on the enemy's thing. Genius system is the one which has got total intelligence to adaptability is there. The genius system is Agile system. And you have the transhuman, which is we are seeing, that is the next step. So very clearly visible in the software-based era of technical systems that we are in, we are going to lead to transhuman systems. That is the future. So we are looking at the project management in the 4.0 with the artificial intelligence coming up, data analytics. We are thinking of introducing that into the project planning and monitoring. So that will be controlling a huge number of activities can be now tiled into proper planning, and analysis will be better. Then adaptive manufacturing, additive manufacturing, reduce the time and cost. Then blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies for supply chain management. Then IoT for collaboration, then virtual collaborative meetings, and multi-directional project engineering new tools to integrate all the partners. This is what we are thinking as the new area which will be coming up. So this is about the overall project management, how it is important for us. A country like India, which is now has just gone through all the problems in the recent times, we need to get into $5 trillion economy. So we need to adopt project management in an agile manner so that we'll be in a position to make our country a strong nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for enlightening us with agility and the recent project management and the project management that was done during Vikram Sarabhai time and Professor Satish Dhawan. And thank you for enlightening us with so many informations on project management, sir. Thank you. I now request Mr. Naveen Garg to proceed.
Thank you, Sivathanu, and thank you, Dr. Pillai, for great enlightening talk that covered the span of history of India and its all and where it is today, thanks to people like yourself who has actually built technologies that not only compete at the world scale, but they are not second to none. That is, they are the top technologies in the world. Let me take some time here to share my experiences, both, based upon my past 3 decades of software development, be it large enterprises, Texas Instruments or Microsoft Corporation, or be it software startups. One actually nearly 3 decades ago, which was the very first PC relational database company, OpenText Gupta, to actually today, where I have my own software startup working on some of the things that Dr. Pillai touched upon in the end, bringing artificial intelligence to the space of project management itself and applying that not only for software development, but across various vertical industries. Initially, I'm going to just brief up on how project management applies to the software industry in general, and I'll touch upon both the traditional waterfall model as well as the agile models, and also talk about something that people have been recently talking about is the hybrid approach. Then I'll look at the entire software engineering life cycle, from planning, implementation to release management. From then on, I'll talk about some of the typical challenges we face, and these challenges could be product or technology related, and quite equally people and environment related. And as a project manager, one has to be aware of both of those types of challenges. I was just briefing up my agenda. So after I've talked about the software project management in general, some of the challenges, I'll talk about some of the lessons that I've learned in my experiences and what I would caution the new project management people coming into the field. And lastly, I'll talk about the role of artificial intelligence and some of the things that we are specifically working on in that space. And after that, as Shibana and Ami mentioned, we'll open it for people to have a roundtable discussion. So let's look at software engineering lifecycle. And I mentioned, and as Dr. Pillai mentioned, a traditional waterfall model has based upon essentially looking at the project scope at the top, and then using that scope, you basically design the timeline that is based upon the available resources and the time available. You plan the project based upon the scope. And you may break the project down into milestones, but essentially your scope is fixed and you're starting from ground zero and building up to the completion of that scope. In agile methodologies, that model is inverted. Essentially, you focus on building based upon time slots. So you break down, the available time into manageable time units. We call them sprints. It could be week long, 2 week long, month-long or 3-week-long, depending upon the scale of the project. And essentially, you are quickly building your project in discrete elements. So as Dr. Pillai showed, in a particular Agile, you had 30% of the entire work done, but that work was done 100%. So essentially, at any given concrete time, you have certain tasks defined, but those tasks are done completely. And you meet, on a very frequent and a regular basis, be it, early morning huddle or scrum, as it's called, where you quickly go over, the tasks for the day. You are not essentially trying to solve the problems there, but you are identifying the people who would be responsible for finding the solutions for the task. You assign them the task for the day. You may meet again in the afternoon or in the evening or at the latest next day and go over your task on a daily basis. And this way, as the agility involves, it brings the team together. So team is working collaboratively on a daily basis. So the chances of miscommunication or the project going out of hand are minimized. So project is built over time quickly with less chances of failure or errors. Now, where does hybrid come into this? So one of the things that has been lately talked about, and I'll highly encourage you to read people's experiences, their opinions in the space, is that some of the problems, both models have their own, pros and cons. But with agility, the danger is actually moving away from your North Star. That is, what is your MVP or, minimally viable product, right? You don't want your process and methodology to take over your end goal. So it is very important to have a focus on what is it that you're delivering. And that what you're delivering actually is defined not only what you started with, but with the change of time, you have customer expectations changing, you have competition changing, you have your own internal variables changing, your dependencies, your assumptions, your team. So there are a lot of things that keep changing. So you need to make sure that your minimally viable product or your North Star, your North Pole, where you are headed, is defined well, and that is essentially what your scope is. So even if you have to refine your scope, you don't want to lose focus of your scope even when you are following the agile methodologies. And that's where the hybrid approaches come into play, where you do not lose focus on your end objective, but you apply agility and iterative approach to project building, to take advantages of both the approaches. Now let's look at how those apply into software engineering itself. The diagram that I've shown as a software development lifecycle, I'm sure you have seen it several times. In the interest of simplicity, I have broken down into 3 phases. One is essentially which is about planning, analysis, and design. Second is about actually implementation. That is the crux of when you are in the middle of the thick of the things. And lastly, is the release management, where you're actually releasing a particular release, you are in the maintenance mode, or you're planning the next one. So that's how you iterate, these 3 phases. And in each phase, let's look at, the planning and analysis phase. If you're building, traditional on-site products, my experience is going back to early Microsoft days, we focused heavily on actually writing up various documentations. And these were called primarily, MRD and PRD. These are, market requirement document or a product requirement document. MVP, I've already talked about, which is, your minimal viable product. Now, these are actually nothing else than, your actually pitch deck in the world of startups today, or your, what you hear about your elevator pitch. This could be a 30-second pitch, or your 2-minute or a 1-minute elevator pitch. In terms of essence of these documents, there is nothing that has changed, be it, the technologies or the products of the past, or the agile, Scrum-based, startups of today. The goal here is that you need to understand, who your customer is, what is your business, what is your addressable market space, what is your revenue potential, who is paying, if it's customer who is paying, directly, or if it's, you're looking into a secondary sources of revenues, what is the revenue opportunity, and then using that to define your minimal viable product requirements. So that is an essential aspect. As a part of planning, you need to do that. Now I will talk about briefly usability and design as part of the planning itself. So it's one thing to actually come up with pretty screens and spending time to find the nicest logo or the icons for your product. But actually, that is not the most important thing in the early phases. What is more important is what I call storyboarding. So essentially, this is coming up, and this could be at the back of a paper napkin. Some of the best products are designed literally in a cafeteria or in a coffee house, using a piece of napkin and actually designing what the actual user experience would look like. And what I mean by that is, if you're designing a software, let's say you're building an online commerce platform for your kirana store, and you want to have that kirana store enable compete with GeoMart or Amazon.com of the world. Very I mean, I believe somebody will take this on sooner or later. But if you were to do that, you want to build a storyboard around how that kirana store can provide the list of their products, be it grocery items, be it your daily pulses, or other items, vegetables for that matter. How that grocery store can present those experience into your world, be it your mobile phone, be it WhatsApp, or whatever that screen is, and then go through the experience of how would you order that, how would you specify quantities, how would you pay for that, how would you receive, how would you handle returns of that product, and all that experience, describe that into your, what I call is 80-20 rule, your most likely use cases on a day-to-day basis, and describe those storyboards. And that is actually more important, because those storyboards, and there are a lot of tools available today, you can easily use mockup and other platforms to build those, and you run that by the actual users. Those users could be your friends and family, your well-wishers, your early testers, and get their feedback into the design process. Are you on the right track? Also study what the competition is doing, what GeoMart is doing in that space, what Amazon is doing, how you would differentiate against those. So that is the early part of planning that is more important, than actually spending more time into perfecting the actual user screens at that stage. Now, when it comes to implementation, of course, we talk about writing code, writing test cases, testing, and actually doing integration. But what is again more important to me is where I have found building a common consensus on what is it that is being designed, what is that being tested, and what is that the user want, is actually having a set of documents around them, and we call them specifications. This could be functional specification, design specification, or test specifications. Again, in traditional software design, these could have been 10 or 20-page documents. In fact, there is actually an IEEE specification for those that could run to 50 pages. But that is no longer needed in the agile world, and that depends upon the team, the people who are working with you. This could be a simple email. This could be a bullet list, that describes that, hey, this is the functional spec. These are the 5 things this particular feature needs to do. And the developer may say, okay, in order for me to build this, these are the components that I'm going to use. I'm going to take React, or I'm going to take these Python libraries, this version of the software I'll use, and this is the overall architecture. And these are the stress points, I need to have the security factored into, I need to take, certain stress or scale goals into there. Likewise, a tester may say, okay, this is how I'm going to do the black box testing of the entire scenario. And having those things, spelled out, in a shared format, whether these are documents or emails or chat messages, doesn't matter, these are simply tools of the trade. But having that, shared among your team members is of utmost importance, because that brings those people together, especially, in the world of remote management, where, you know, majority of work is being done off-site. You know, it could be across time zones, across countries, and, you know, clearly, you know, certainly, you know, we are fairly used to doing so. Having those plans written down, spelled out, and agreed upon is of utmost importance. Another term that I will actually stress upon, you would hear, is called CI/CD. That is, you know, continuous integration and delivery or deployment. Now, this is actually very important. And what that really means is, in the world of software, or, you know, if you're doing simulation for hardware, you know, the traditional models, you know, be it waterfall, be it agility, you know, is like, you know, you have, let's say, you know, 5 developers working on their features and 3 testers writing tests around those. You know, you assemble all those work and you decide, okay, end of the week, we are going to, you know, build it all together and have a test together. That is your traditional, you know, baking model. You bake the software, you test it, and then you release it, and you know, test it with your, either yourself or with your, you know, select set of testers. That model actually is no longer, you know, the preferred model. The preferred model, which is called CI/CD, is essentially every single check-in, you know, every single piece of code that a developer writes, you know, is checked in, and on a daily basis, you know. And if you need a shorter cycle, be it so, but at least on a daily basis, there is actually a build process. And more sophisticated software, even our small startup, you know, we actually have this all automated. Every check-in done by every developer is pulled into that. We do a build of the entire software on a nightly basis. We run all the test suites. You know, we require developers to have tests written, and we run those tests against the entire build. And any failure is actually priority 1, severity 1 failure. Whoever caused that failure must take that as the most important work item to make sure that build never fails. So what that does is brings urgency to overall stability of the product from day one, and it maintains so throughout the life cycle of that particular milestone of that particular project. So that is very important concept, and I will highly encourage, you know, for any project that you take on, to look into that and get into practice as soon as possible. Another piece that I will actually stress upon is the value of testing and actually writing test cases. You know, at one time when I was working with Bill Gates closely, he commented, you know, that Microsoft is actually not a software development organization. It is a software testing organization. He was looking at the number of resources that Microsoft spent on actually testing compared to actually writing software. It was mind-boggling. And that concept is now changing and evolving by pushing the role of testing onto developers themselves. And why that is important is actually, you know, as a developer, you have to have mindset of the quality from the day one. That is, you know, your code has to have certain quality. You can't simply just write a piece of code, it compiles, and you throw it over the wall saying, okay, it's somebody else's responsibility to test it, integrate it, and make sure that it actually does what it was supposed to do. So now, you know, this notion of unit test is actually the responsibility of the developers themselves. They should write those test cases and make sure their code coverages, you know, are up to, you know, covering majority of their code in the entire cycle. Now, lastly, you know, talking about the release and maintenance and planning, and there's a lot talked about it. One thing that I would actually stress upon is essentially the role of dog food. You know, this is a term we use in software a lot. And essentially, it's using the software ourselves on a daily basis. You know, so for example, when we are writing project management software ourselves, we are actually using that to manage the project itself. So we are using it while we are actually developing it. That helps us, you know, understand and go through the pain points of the users ourselves on a daily basis. I'll give you some examples actually going back into the Microsoft days. You know, I was involved with, you know, the release of Windows 7, you know, we were building, and, you know, we had our presentation to second in command, Brian Valentine, who was the overall, you know, release management vice president for Windows 7 release. our division VP, made a presentation about the work we were doing. And as soon as, they brought up the presentation, Brian noted that actually the PowerPoint was running on Windows XP. Brian actually reached out, took the laptop, he threw it out of the room. He said, I cannot accept that our division head is actually not using Windows 7 to show the presentation. The importance of actually using our own software, no matter how buggy it is, how unstable it is baked into the culture itself. So yes, it took us a long time to build Windows 7, but by pushing the leadership to use those products from day one actually made a difference. Now, I have some other stories as well. In fact, actually, I was responsible for installing the very first version of Microsoft Office on Bill Gates' personal machine itself. And I have the honor of actually making his machine not work. He was using only one laptop. This was an HP. I mean, I have the whole details. It was a Hewlett-Packard laptop, back in the 90s. And I had to ask Bill, Bill, would you be taking your machine home today? And he, being the perceptive one, said, Naveen, no, nobody's, I'm not taking it today. And the Windows core developer and myself, we spent the night in Bill's office, with the security guard, watching as a hawk, not knowing what we were doing. But we managed to restore Bill's laptop and found the crucial bugs in the Windows registry implementation that caused that bug. And that happened, before Windows 7 got to release, or Windows 95 actually got to release. So again, I cannot stress, the importance of dog food. It has, done wonders for building, enterprise software that we have come to use on a daily basis across, hardware from, thousands of vendors, thousands of, add-ons, and it works, almost flawlessly, if not 100%. Let's move on to typical challenges that we face or that I have looked into. Now, one thing that happens constantly, it's feature versus resources, and you will see that both in traditional software as well as in startups, it happens because, competition is moving at lightning speed, your VCs are on your back, asking for more features, asking for looking into what others are doing. You have this constant struggle. One thing as a project manager or a project leader, you have to keep in mind, and this is actually a phrase I am using from one of the leaders at Microsoft, and that's called shipping is a feature also. Shipping is the term we use, when you release a product, this is in the old days, we have been using, when you ship a product, is essentially it's gone to manufacturing or it's now released to the web, and you realize actually completing the product itself is a feature, so you need to make sure that you never forget sight of that. So even though, there are pressing challenges from competition, from your VCs, from your internal team dynamics, you have to constantly evaluate that against the very top goal that is actually releasing the product itself. So never forget the sight of that. Then, you always have, late breaking requirements. As I mentioned, you will run into those, you will have design dependency constraints from developers. You may have made certain, assumptions that didn't held up, you made it depend, and this actually happens to us routinely these days. There are so many open source software components out there. There are so many third-party libraries out there. We assume that this will do X, Y, Z, but in the end, you realize it only does X and Z, not Y. So you have to go back and fix those things. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, as you're encountering these changes, don't forget the side of, that you have to release the product and you have to make compromises. So be flexible, be reasonable to make, schedule accommodations, adding another sprint or adding another milestone if need be, but do the triage, to make sure that you're finding the right balance between what is your minimal viable product and what is your deadline. Lastly, I'll touch upon, team dynamics and team culture. Having worked across 3 continents, be it in North America, be it Europe, and be it India, and actually Japan for that matter, I can tell you that they make and break the products, so you really need to be able to build what I call personal rapport, so use, I mean, even if it's online conversation, like this is an online webinar, but as a project leader or a project manager, reach out to your counterparts. They could be 12 or 12 and a half time zones, or even 15 time zones apart, doesn't matter, find a common time slot when you can connect, use WhatsApp, use Zoom, use Microsoft Teams, or uh, Google Meet, whatever the technology that you use to have that conversation. And you will find, a one-on-one in-person conversation, a telephone call, and lastly an email, in that order of importance. You will find that the more in-person touch you have with the people, the better rapport you would establish, and more flexibility you have in terms of finding a common ground to build, get to your, essentially going back to, what your end deliverable or the project goals are. What are my lessons learned? I cannot stress the importance of domain knowledge. I know, some of you are doing, a management course in project management. You are learning about the principles of project management. But when Dr. Pillai was talking about the parabolic curve of the BrahMos missile, I can bet you, as a project manager on that project, you better know, how that BrahMos missile is working. What are the technical challenges it faces? Whether your target is moving, what the level of accuracy that needs to have, the amount of thrust it needs to have, whether that RAM engine that Dr. Pillai talked about is capable of providing that initial thrust that is needed for liftoff. You need to have that domain knowledge, and you build that domain knowledge. You may not come expert in all space by applying something that I value a lot, and it's called precision questioning. If you haven't read about it, I highly encourage you to go read up on it. There's a lot of literature available on it. And essentially, it's a technique that you can apply, even coming completely green to a domain, to have quickly build the knowledge, as well as, put the responder also on, guard in terms of what this, problem is about, how this problem surfaced, how it relates to the project, what cost will take to get it done, how long it'll take to get it done, why is it important, all of the, who, what, why, when, where questions are very important. That'll help you to actually not only get the right data for a particular piece of challenge, but also build that domain knowledge that is very important. And I cannot, again, devalue the communication importance. And again, don't simply communicate up to your managers or management. Communicate across within your team and communicate down. All of those communications are fairly important. You are the hub as a project manager. Make sure you're communicating all across. When it comes to actually, bringing the bad news, which as a project manager you have to do quite a lot, I encourage, use, or rather let the data speak. Don't provide an answers or, a speculation that this project is running late. That doesn't mean anything. Provide actual data. If the project is running late, specify specific problems, that the assumptions that you were holding went wrong, or a particular piece of component that you were expecting got delayed, and what the reasons for the delays were, or, if you had set up certain, performance goals, your performance is not up to mark, and find out why it is not up to mark. If you had certain bugs, bug count, or, remaining work items, these are actual data points, and use those data points to build your argument. Whether you need a new deadline, whether you need to change the scope, or whether you need to adjust, resources, whatever the decision points are, have the data drive those decisions. And lastly, as I mentioned, the importance of, documents, whether it's your MVP, whether it's your pitch deck, whether it's your, one-pagers on product specifications, use those documents as the tools to build the consensus in your team, bring them together, keep them together, because it's the team that's doing the work, not you. Remember that you are a cog in the wheel. Now lastly, this is my last slide. I'm going to talk about, the role of AI and what we are doing in our startup to bring that to project management. I'm going to start with the last bullet first here, essentially, which is what Dr. Pillai talked about as well, is looking into data in terms of helping in decision making. Look at the past project's performance. Look at your layout of people's schedules, and use the AI to essentially do schedule management. That is essentially tracking and predicting product progress. We are actually looking beyond that. What we're looking into today, what is happening is the communication and collaboration is some of the key pieces in project management. And, there are a number of bespoke communications that are happening. Communication is happening in emails. It's happening in chat messages, whether it's Microsoft Teams, Salesforce Slack, Google Chat, and you have these documents I talked about. This could be in emails. This could be, PDF files that you received, from your clients or your vendors, Currently, a lot of those, channels of communications are actually not pulled together by any tool per se. It's left to individual team members or project management to extract insights from that and apply them to project. What we are hoping to do with our tool is essentially analyze those documents ourselves using our, natural language processing technique, and mine the intent. So we infer the task updates or any new task that needs to be created as a result of that. We bring it to the project management in situ, into whether it's the the emails, whether it's the collaboration chat messages, or whether it's our own web platform. So we want to bring those new new tasks or task updates wherever the users need to be. We allow the team members as well as external vendors to participate in the project without having them to require installing any project management tools. They can simply be using their chat, WhatsApp messages, or emails, but their intent is communicated back into projects. So your external vendors can actually communicate using their familiar tools, but their updates are actually captured into project management. Then again, there are a lot of ancillary things that happen, whether it's billing, whether it's expenses, again, third party bringing in, issues through PDF files. We have an automatic document processing pipeline that can extract that data and actually feed it into project management. Our goal is essentially use these AI tools to let engineers be engineers and automate majority of the project management work. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for giving me time to talk about my experiences, and I cede control back to Shabana to lead us further. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Right from basic domain knowledge to team building to hybrid approaches, you just covered it, everything. So, and it was mind-boggling. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, the forum is open to take questions from the participants. We have a question from Mr. Suresh. He's asking, in product design and release, cost lead time wise very, very behind compared to other countries. So what do we do about that?
Please let us know who you would like to answer that question.
You can answer.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Actually, somebody asked this very question to Bill Gates, and he frowned. He said, no, intellect is the same world over. People are the same. Now, what he meant by that, it is not our ability, whether we are Indians, whether we are Americans, whether we are Europeans. It's, we are somehow caught into a time warp. And I'm very pleased to see, what Dr. Pillai had to show in terms of BrahMos missile. I mean, just look at, a supersonic, missile that can be launched from air, from ground, from ship, from ocean, and that no other country has today, is a testament to our capabilities and converting some of the challenges, these technologies had in terms of, support from third parties and what India was able to achieve. Same is happening in software industry today with the startups of, today coming out of India, So I think it's more a question of our mindset and our ability to apply to it. So I would challenge you, when you are actually building a product, when you're going for, say, a VC to ask for, MVPs, a VC's help, don't just be me too. You push yourself. You push the boundary. You you do your homework. You find out what the competition is doing. And when I talk about competition, look at worldwide. I mean, today we have the entire world on our platter. We have World Wide Web. India has, fiber bandwidths available. You can be looking into technology implementations. You can be reading up, latest documents, white papers that are available. You can, subscribe to any beta. You can look at any open source technology. So don't constrain yourself. And secondly, don't assume you are the only one. You have to be hungry inside. You have to believe that the idea that you have, there are probably at least 100 other people who are doing the same or trying to do it better. And once you have that mindset, I can pretty much guarantee you that there is no difference. What you're building here versus what you're building somewhere else in the other corner of the world. I hope that answers.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And we have another question to Dr. Sivathanu Pillai, sir. Ms. Kritika is asking, what certifications would you suggest to take it up for project management? And there are a lot of certifications that are mentioned, and what would be the difference each of the certifications have?
See, there are many certification courses available in the world. But after evaluation of all the certification courses, the overall analysis shows that IPMA certification has got a lead. If you want to do any IPMA certificate, we are there to help you. We have got A, B, C, D. There are 4 levels. D is the initial level. If you have got a degree, you are eligible to apply for D level. If you have to go through a course of 4 days training, and then you will be interviewed and you have to pass the test for getting a certificate in D. But if you want to get a C level, you have to go through your experience is very important. At least minimum 5 years of experience in project management is required. And you have to write a project report, and you have to defend the project report in the interview. Then there will be a workshop. There will be a series of process simulation. Everything is done. And then finally, we evaluate you whether you are eligible for C level certification. B level is for very senior people having 20 years experience. And D level, A level is for portfolio management, number of projects they have managed, and they have reached the top position of the organization. These are levels. So if you are interested, please contact PMA website. All the details are available in the website. You please apply for that.
Thank you.
And this is one of the wonderful courses. If you go through the courses, you will be called a project associate in the beginning, and later you will become a project manager.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I hope that answers. This is a question from Wasim Feroz to Mr. Naveen. So he is asking, how do we handle testing in continuous integration and continuous development?
A good question. If you notice, I mentioned the importance of unit testing or the functional testing. In CI/CD, that becomes a given. So you cannot rely on manual testing. So that is, when it comes to CI/CD, you have to have automated tests. And that's where, I was mentioning, as a developer, when you're writing code, you should take the ownership of actually writing test cases as a developer. This is actually a functional piece of code that is running your code and making sure it is testing what it's supposed to do. And there are code coverage metrics, and there are tools available that will actually show you by running your test how much of code is being covered. Your goal as a developer should be that your unit test is actually covering, I mean, if not 100%, a good, you should have a goal of 90+% code coverage. That is, every single code block that you wrote is being tested by the test cases you wrote, And again, it goes back to what I mentioned, storyboarding, what are the use cases that the user is trying to do? You understand that and use those to actually build your test cases. Remember, if you're writing a software for your kirana store to provide you, an online shopping experience for your groceries, write your test cases to make sure, that kirana store can actually show it groceries, and you make sure, you have a test case that can actually check if the grocery had 10 items, then those 10 items actually showed up in the UI. That is what I meant by actually writing functional tests and unit tests. And also, as you start building, more and more test cases, the bugs that you find, if you're testing each bug, make sure there is a test case for that, so that that bug does not occur again. If you did a manual test, you find a bug, don't close that bug. That once the bug gets fixed, you close the bug when there is actually an automated test case for that, and it is part of your CI/CDs. That means that bug will never occur again. Realize that actually adds the burden, because if you're changing your code, if your code is evolving, that means all those test cases you wrote, they will also need to change and evolve. So you are, as a developer and as a tester, you have the ownership of any piece of code you write. And as your design changes, as your code changes, don't just change your development code, also change your test code so that they keep up to pace.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And we have another question for Dr. Sivathanu Pillai, sir. This is from a student. So I am Vishnu, studying aerospace engineering in Hindustan, and he is very keen to meet you because he wants to know more about BrahMos and its recent developments. You mentioned about the hypersonic one that's going on right now. So he is very keen to know about it and meet you.
Okay, let him meet me. Okay, next question.
This question goes out to the both of you. So he said, Mr. Karthik asked, like, Agile methodology has been widely adopted for its rapid incremental delivery and change adaptability. The traditional waterfall or SDLC, even though it's time consuming, and by the time of delivery, many changes might have happened already on the deliverable. The hybrid model is an interesting concept that was explained today, which combines the pulses of both models. So my question would be, is there any resources or places where this hybrid method has been implemented? And could you suggest some sites or cases for reference?
Mr. Varun, Naveen will answer.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So we use it internally ourselves. In fact, Microsoft, when I was working at Microsoft, we were evolving from SDLC to Agile, so we went through this change pretty much lively in our, product development. Initial versions of Windows and Windows operating systems were all, what traditional waterfall models. When Microsoft transitions to Azure and online, we started bringing in Agile and Scrum into our development methodologies. But the fact is, we always had, and I mentioned, the importance of hybrid comes into, not losing your focus on the scope. That is the most important thing that the waterfall model gave you. That is, you actually have a well-defined scope. In Agile, because your focus changes to those discrete task elements, there is a danger of, basically have those discrete task elements take a life its own. If you're building, small slices, the end picture may differ very widely from what you intended to build. So a hybrid approach essentially is, a gate check on your overall deliverable. So even if you build 20%, make sure that 20% is not, it's an integral part of the entire 100%. Or if it varies, it doesn't vary out of bounds. So that's where the hybrid approach comes into play. And as I mentioned, we have used it at Microsoft. We are using it in our, software development right now for our project management solution. And, as I mentioned before, the entire World Wide Web is available to you. So if you were to just go and do a search for a hybrid versus waterfall versus agile, I can guarantee you will find plenty of references out there. So be resourceful.
Well, I agree with you, Naveen. In my past, when I was working on a tablet solution for school children, we were working on the agile approach. And, we broke down our entire projects in small sprints. The main problem that I faced was you give a demo of one sprint to the management, and looking at that sprint, they come up with new features within that sprint.
Yes,
so when does that sprint end? That was the main problem. And at one stage, I had to tell them, okay, this is the first phase, we've frozen. Now, whatever changes you are doing, I will document it for the second phase, and then we'll do it in another sprint. So that is the main problem that we face.
Very well articulated. I mean, and indeed, this is the danger. When you're doing,
out of nowhere.
Exactly. Pillai sir, I would like to have your thoughts on this. You must also have faced such things.
Yeah. You see, when you talk about BrahMos, we have used completely agile leadership. See, we started developing the anti-ship version. So then look at the anti-ship version and evolving a schedule for 4 years. We don't want to go for 4 years schedule. We wanted to go for the agile way of working to break down into milestone. And then in 2 years, we launched, milestone we achieved. So like that, we did that. And the hybrid model, what we are talking is very well suitable to our way of working, because we immediately gone into the land version also. So we integrated that, and that was going in the regular model. So we were trying to integrate both an agile and as well as the regular way of doing the project management. So it's a way of doing the work. You see, actually what is required is our mindset. Naveen was saying that we have to be very clear in what we want to achieve. We should be very clear. Then it is obviously you define the course which will lead you to success. That is very important.
Agree.
And you have to definitely do mid-course corrections on the way. You can't keep quiet and saying that rigidly you cannot manage any system.
That's true. So it should be flexible.
Yes.
And we need to incorporate any kind of surprises that come our way.
To a limit.
Yeah.
Okay.
This question is to Dr. Sivathanu Pillai, sir. Which PM methodology has been used in the development of the supersonic missile? And she would like to know how Agile and Scrum is applied for mechanical and aerospace industries.
See, as I just now told, we have used the Agile methodology for BrahMos, not just the conventional method. We initially started with conventional method, then we changed over to Agile. And the type of Scrum is used mainly in the software. In the software industry, IT industry mostly use the Scrum method. We didn't use the Scrum. It was only in the group which is developing the software, they use the Scrum methodology. Otherwise, we go for only the conventional method and incorporating the Agile part of it. So in the BrahMos, if you want to say that we achieved many targets, initially one objective, but multiple objectives have been achieved in very short time, all because of the Agile project leadership.
That's true. Actually, quite a lot was achieved. Having said that, sir, this India-Russia relationship, that was implemented for BrahMos, the world is still in awe of, like, literally how it was done all seamlessly. How was it actually done, like so seamlessly, especially when it is done between two countries?
Well, it's basically you want to manage the culture. See, we are different countries. When you are doing the culturally, people are different, languages different, objectives are different, the way things are being done is different. Even the project management methods are different. The way the Russians do is totally different. When they want to do a test, we make a prototype and do the test. They don't do like that. they make 20 systems at a time and then they start doing that. So the way of doing things are different. So we have to compromise. We have to come to the platform. Collaborative approach. Naveen was telling that when you have to collaborate, you have to meet together, discuss, and then finalize what is required to be done. So we had a good thing because as a CEO, I had the command over the Russians. So we have got a very intelligent group of Russians. They were very much dedicated, very strong in mathematics, and they are very strong in propulsion materials, technology. Compared to India, they are very far ahead. So, but we are working with them. At the same time, we should not put down our capability. We are doing the software guidance, we are doing, and they appreciated the intelligence of the Indians. So we have to put across the two very dominant technology-oriented group together to meet, so that the respect comes between the two partners. When it is equal partnership, then things are becoming easier to do that. So that is what I try to make, that it is not India or Russia, we are one. That is the culture which I draw to see that we have to go for the mission. Mission draw the development.
The two different cultures, and there was one common culture that was set for the mission.
Yes.
Great, sir, great.
Similarly, two different industries, one common project, and some common points we have in the webinar.
Exactly. This question is to Mr. Naveen Garg. How to handle failures in software project management?
So failures are at many levels, right? So there could be like a failure in certain assumptions that you made, and it's a component that failed, and that's a setback in overall project plan. And then there are mega failures, where, for example, I can relate to my own experience, some of the projects that actually Bill Gates himself sanctioned that I was very enthused about, we had full, authority to go ahead and build. We had some of the most experienced and skilled staff working with us. We spent a year trying to build this, and we failed spectacularly. And the biggest thing that I can say is, some of the lessons, as I mentioned, that we learned, apply, it's the team culture, team dynamics, failure to see, did we have, what our internal clients needed? Are we building something just because somebody says to build? Is there a market for this? Those challenges are the real challenges, or those, lessons are the real lessons. So when it comes to failures, I think, the biggest thing, I would say is that failure is part of learning. If you don't fail, you haven't tried hard enough. We all fail. And I think, let me just, put that in context, in the sense that, clearly, when I was working at Microsoft, failure is something that did not impact my bottom line. That is, my salaries, I still continue to earn the salary. I was still employed, and Microsoft as a company appreciated that, But, when you're working in a startup, when you actually failure is part of your livelihood. So I can clearly relate that, a failure is immediate, and it is deeply personal. It has, a deep impact on who you are as a person, and, what you can do to sustain. I think, I really do not have an answer other than to say that, try to disassociate yourself with your circumstances and actually analyze the learning from the experience. That is, what were the critical reasons that led to that failure? Was it the, assumptions that were made? Was it the product didn't meet the expectation? Product didn't meet the customer expectation? There were competition who were faster than you, or there certainly the team members, who just didn't gel together, So any of those reasons could have led to the failures, right? And then I think once you learn from those failures, I would say, use that as your ammunition to reapply yourself to whatever the next challenges that you want to take on, whether it's the same company, whether it's a new company, whether it's a new product, whether it's a startup or completely different domain. Those lessons, are valuable lessons. And I would say, use those lessons to learn and apply it to your next projects.
Great. Speaking of failures, I think Dr. Sivathanu Pillai sir would also have massive number of such experiences, especially with launch of, PSLV-3 and several other missiles that you had to develop. So how did you overcome that, sir, or how did you handle it?
See, as you always, when you have a failure, you have to, your learning ground has come. You learn a lot of things through failure rather than the success. So the failure is not a sin. Failure is a step to success. So what we do is, when there is a failure, we have got a failure analysis board which goes through the detail why it failed. For example, the software we were discussing, when we have a software developed, we go through the complete code, verified, then the whole program analyzed, all those things. Then we have a separate IV and V, independent verification and validation, separate team. They go through the complete detail and then they certify, yes, these codes, everything is okay, you can go through. Then we don't believe that also. Then we go through the simulation. So in the simulation, there are two steps. One is called hybrid simulation, where we put it in the computer and then do the whole software simulated and then see whether the mission performance will be achieved, whether the accuracy is what we have talked is will be achieved or not. Then we go into hardware in loop simulation, where we put the integrate the software into the hardware and then put it in the 5-axis simulator and then run the mission on ground. And then we verify whether we achieve that. We do all steps in detail. Today, if you see so many PSLV flights are going all successful, is all because of the methods which have been evolved to verify every step in software as well as the hardware. Now, first PSLV, when it failed, we had a failure in the software. It's a failure of the software. So what the question which was asked was very relevant. What we have got is there's a simple mistake in the assumption what we have made, which is supposed to give certain type of error boundary. It has exceeded the boundary. So when it exceeds, it will not take it off. So that was a very, very simple problem which has led to the failure. Then we have to analyze, go through detail, correct it, and then go through simulation. All these detailed steps have been followed and then we corrected. Even in BrahMos also, when we have gone from the land, when we have gone to land version, from the anti-ship version. Anti-ship is a target which is just got a big radar cross section, so it is definitely the missile will home on to that. But when we talk about land, you have got the multiple in a city, multiple buildings are there. You have to target one particular building where the terrorists are there. You have to go and hit it. That type of requirement comes. The whole philosophy of the guidance changes. So here again, the software is very, very important. We have to go through a complete evaluation process. And we did that. And we successfully simulated everything. But in the flight, when it has gone, it did not hit the target. There was a deviation. So then we have to go through again the whole thing and then correct it. And now we achieved. Today, if you see BrahMos, we are getting precision. On the spot, we are able to hit it. These achieved, no missile has achieved this much accuracy that we could get it. See, this all because of the series of work which we have done to evaluate the process and then discuss collaborative mode between India and Russia. We have done that and very successfully done. So failure, as your question is, failure is part of the game. Yeah, particularly in aerospace, failure is very common. You see space shuttle, what a successful program, finally 2 failures were there. Kalpana Chawla, we lost. So see, many things happen like that in aerospace. But at the same time, with the number of millions of components being there in one system, you have to be very, very careful in evaluating, qualifying, and finally checking everything. Every pin has to be checked. We lost SLV-3 first flight because of one dirt. A small dirt was there in the solenoid wall, which did not allow the solenoid wall to close. So because of which we lost the control system field. So, it is a very, very important thing to do everything in the clean room very carefully. So whole process is very difficult in aerospace. That we have gone through all problems.
And also the
Is
project managers, they also play a very keen role here, right? Especially during the times of failures, in order to pat the team members back and then just again come back and lead the team.
Yes, but failure, when it happens, is very important. Suppose the failure happens when we go through a design, then we call it PDR, preliminary design review. And the preliminary design review, if the problems are identified, we correct it. Then we go through the prototype development. Prototype testing is over. Then we go through a CDR, critical design review 1, phase 1. Then after testing, all the environmental test is done. We go through again a CDR 2. We go through. In those phases, if there are problems and corrected, then we are safe. But the failure should not come in the launch pad, then it is a very serious problem. So we should do it. We should encourage failure in the early stage so that we can correct it.
And Naveen sir, can you please compare Microsoft and other startups? We're all following the traditional box office setups, and they're all moving towards the unconventional work setups, right? So can you please compare how it works on the both ends?
Yes, so I think you might have seen the latest news reports, that senior leaders in the industry, and I think there was one very recent comment from Elon Musk regarding Tesla engineers, and essentially there is a push to bring employees back to on-site, that is, in offices, and have them work together. And if you recall, what I was mentioning in terms of building rapport or building collaboration, especially having in-person communication, followed by, if that's not possible, Zoom calls, Google Meets, and then if not that possible, then a phone call, if that's not possible, then only rely on chat messages or emails, So there is a degree of intimacy when it comes to collaboration with your team members, and more industry leaders are finding, that the in-person, in-office, on-premise teams effectively work better, and the innovation that happened actually in the coffee rooms, and walking up to somebody's office room and actually designing on the whiteboard, those spontaneous innovations, is something that is lacking when everybody has gone, offline. So I think there is a value of, being able to work offline. I mean, especially, clearly, in India, the traffic is a mess. If you're living in a place like Delhi or, Delhi NCR, same actually in the US, cities like Seattle and Los Angeles, they are notorious for having humongous traffic backlogs, so employees are really enjoying being able to use their morning or evening commute towards either work hours or attending to their family needs or their personal needs, social needs, so there are tremendous productivity gains by being able to work at your own time, in your own home, in your own jammies, to say, but at the same time, there is a tremendous value of being able to work in a collaborative fashion in place when the multiple minds are working together. So I guess, the jury is still out there. I think, as companies start to find their niche, they start to work together, they will have to find a way to bring teams together in person, at least on a routinely basis, if not always. That'll be, my take.
I think we have come to the end of the questions here. So, yes. So I'd like to thank Dr. Sivathanu Pillai sir and Naveen Garg for treating us and loading us with so much of knowledge, and kicking us the interest in project management to pursue it further. So with the high hopes of, having several such sessions in the future, I would like to, pass the forum to Ms. Agarwal.
It was such an enlightening session by both of you that, I am actually overwhelmed to say anything to end this session. I really do not want it to come to an end. But I will still end it quoting Dr. APJ Abul Kalam Azad, who said, if you fail, never give up, because fail means first attempt in learning. And end, as they say, is not an end. It says effort never dies. So let us all make continuous efforts. And even if we fail, let's keep learning. Let's keep sharing our knowledge. So we will be having more successive webinars. And we look forward to hear from both of you in future. Maybe it will be a monthly event or so. But we will keep you updated on how and when the next episode is happening. So thank you so much, Pillai sir, and thank you so much, Naveen, for sparing your time on a weekend for all of us. And I hope all the students have gained quite a lot of knowledge out of it, and they will all be excited for the second season of it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Savannah, for conducting it very well.
Thank you, sir. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thanks.